Welcome back to the deep dive. I I hope you are somewhere comfortable right now.
Yeah, I definitely hope so.
Maybe you have a warm drink. Maybe you're just lounging on the couch.
Or hiding in the car.
Right, hiding in your car in the driveway just to get 5 minutes of peace before facing the chaos inside. Whatever your situation is, I really want you to just take a breath. Because today we are strictly, specifically, and intentionally chilling.
That is the absolute mandate for today. We are taking the pressure entirely off.
Exactly. We are officially off the clock.
Oh,
You know that feeling, right? That Sunday night feeling?
yeah, Sunday scaries.
Yeah, or maybe it hits you on a Monday morning when the alarm goes off, that heavy, just sinking pit in your stomach when you think about the job, the daily grind.
The hunt for employment, if you're looking.
Right. That feeling of trading your finite hours for dollars in a way that just feels, it just feels wrong.
It's the universal dread. It's a very human condition, unfortunately. That friction between what we have to do to survive in an economic system and what we actually want to do with our time here.
It really is. And today we are going to validate that feeling for you in a major way. We are looking at a source today that basically says, hey, that job you hate, it might actually be making you physically ill.
Literally sick.
Yeah. And we're not talking about just a tension headache or feeling a bit tired. We're talking about your body going on a full-blown union-organized strike.
It is such a fascinating case study in the mind-body connection. I mean, we often hear about stress in a vague sense, but this deep dive goes so much deeper into the mechanics of how our psychology literally manipulates our biology to get us out of things we detest.
So let's set the stage for everyone listening. We are diving into the Seth Material today.
Yes.
Specifically, we are chilling out with session 345 of the Early Sessions Book 8 of the Seth Material. And the date of record is June 12, 1967.
On Monday night, fittingly enough. If
Yeah.
you're going to talk about the dread of employment, Monday is definitely the day to do it.
On Monday night in 1967, the summer of love is kicking off, the world is changing, but inside an apartment in Elmira, New York, a couple is trying to figure out why things just aren't working.
Right.
Our mission today is to unpack a massive breakthrough moment for Jane Roberts, who is referred to as Ruburt in the sessions, and her husband, Rob, or Joseph. This is the moment where they finally figure out why Jane has been dealing with these intense physical symptoms and creative blocks.
And it turns out the answer wasn't a virus. It wasn't an injury. It wasn't bad luck or bad posture. It was a career choice.
Exactly. And just to keep things weird, because we love weird here, and that's why we do this deep dive, we're also going to cover a very specific, honestly slightly hilarious list of forbidden foods that was generated by a pendulum.
The diet plan from the subconscious, it is truly one of a kind.
The diet plan from the subconscious, where, spoiler alert, tomatoes are considered poison, but pizza is totally fine.
Logic need not apply, or at least not conventional logic. But as we'll see, there is a weird kind of internal logic to it.
We will get to that, and trust me, you want to stick around for the pizza paradox. But first, a mandatory declaration before we get started. Just a heads up, this podcast is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are here to explore ideas, unpack history, and have a good time, not to prescribe medicine.
Absolutely.
Okay, so hook me here. We're talking about Jane Roberts. She's channeling Seth, this energy personality essence. But in this specific session, she's struggling.
She is really struggling.
She's in pain. She's blocked. What is the aha moment we're looking at?
The aha moment is the realization that physical health is often language. Jane had been suffering from what Seth calls blocking and physical immobility.
So she couldn't move well.
Right. She was having trouble moving freely, trouble writing, trouble just being comfortable in her own body. And on the morning of June 12th, she finally admitted something to herself that she had been suppressing.
Oh.
She admitted that the idea of getting a regular job working for someone else wasn't just annoying. It was, to her psyche, highly and critically unacceptable.
Highly and critically unacceptable. I love that phrasing.
It's very precise.
It sounds like a system error on a computer, like a blue screen of death for the human soul.
That is exactly what it was,
Right.
a biological system error. When the operating system of your mind says no, but you try to force the hardware of your body to say yes, the machine crashes.
So let's unpack this thorn in the flesh, as Seth calls it, because I think a lot of people listening can relate to this. You have bills to pay. You feel responsible.
Yeah.
So you think, I'll just get a job. I'll be a teacher. I'll work in sales. I'll drive a truck, whatever. And Jane was doing this right. She wasn't just sitting around.
No, she was actively looking. She was looking at nursery schools. She was looking at being an Avon lady.
Which seems so normal.
On the surface, it seems like the responsible adult thing to do. Her husband, Rob, was worried about money. He had some unrealistic expectations about his own book sales at the time. He thought he was going to hit it big immediately.
Yeah.
And when that didn't happen, he felt that they needed extra cash immediately. So naturally, like any supportive partner who is stressed about rent, he encouraged Jane to find steady work.
Which makes sense. That's what you do. When the bank account gets low, you hit the classified ads.
Logically, yes. In the 3D world of paying bills, it makes perfect sense. But psychically, whatever that means for Jane's internal makeup, it was a complete disaster.
Wow.
Seth says explicitly that these feelings about the work situation were responsible for the blocking. He calls it the plucking of the Sorest Thorn.
So the symptoms, the physical inability to do things, were a shield, like a defense mechanism.
Precisely. And this is where we have to get into the nuance of dependency versus independence. Because Seth makes a really brilliant point here that flips the script on how we usually think about laziness or a reluctance to work.
Okay, I'm tracking.
I think this is where it gets really interesting for anyone analyzing their own behavior. You might think, looking at this from the outside, oh, Jane just didn't want to work. She wanted to be dependent on Rob. She wanted a free ride.
Right, the lazy artist trope. I'm too creative to clock in, someone else pay for my snacks.
Exactly. But Seth says it's the exact opposite. He argues that if she were actually lazy or actually dependent, she wouldn't have gotten sick at all.
Wait, walk me through that. It seems counterintuitive. If she was dependent, she wouldn't have had the conflict.
Think about it. I'll quote the session here. Seth says, if he were truly a dependent personality, there would have been no overwhelming conflict. If you are a truly dependent personality, you are perfectly happy to let someone else carry the load. If Jane were actually dependent, she would have sat back, let Rob stress about the money, let him work 3 jobs if necessary, and she wouldn't have felt a thing.
Oh.
She would have been content in her dependency. She would have said, go get him, Tiger, and gone back to reading her books.
I see. She wouldn't have felt the guilt. She wouldn't have felt this massive pressure to fix the situation.
Right. The symptoms arose because she is not dependent. She is fiercely independent. She desperately wanted to help. She felt she needed to contribute. She felt the weight of the bills just as much as Rob did, and she wanted to pull her weight.
So the conflict wasn't, I don't want to help. The conflict was, I need to make money to help my husband, versus the way I am trying to make money is killing my soul.
Exactly. Seth says the method, a traditional job, became unacceptable. But only the method.
Just the how.
Yes. She didn't resent making money. She didn't resent contributing. She resented the structure of a job. And because she couldn't verbally or consciously say no to Rob because she wanted to be a good partner and she wanted to alleviate his stress, her body said no for her.
That is profound. Her body went on strike because her mind couldn't file the grievance. It's like her leg muscle said, if you walk toward that nursery school, we are quitting.
It's a brilliant protection mechanism when you think about it. Seth points out that whenever Jane fights what Rob wants, there is a very strong reason. She doesn't cross him lightly. They had a very close relationship. So she shielded herself from the knowledge of her own rebellion by getting sick. If you're sick, you literally can't take the job at the nursery school. It solves the problem without you having to be the bad guy who refuses to work.
It's the ultimate subconscious loophole.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to work at the nursery school, honey, but my legs don't work today. What a shame. Guess I'll have to stay home and write.
It sounds manipulative when you say it like that, and I want to be clear. Seth emphasizes that this wasn't a conscious manipulation.
She wasn't faking it.
Not at all. She was in real pain. This was a tumultuous activity in her psyche. The subconscious mind is incredibly powerful. It can create real inflammation, real blockage, real incapacity. Seth even mentions that just Rob's casual remarks about the benefits of a regular job would bring her symptoms to a pitch.
Just him mentioning it triggered the sickness, like an allergic reaction.
Yes. A week prior to the session, or even the day before on a Sunday drive, Rob mentioned regular work and Jane became psychically upset. It completely clogged their communication.
It's like an allergic reaction to a conversation topic. You know, we talk about trigger warnings today, but this was a biological trigger. Rob says employment benefits, and Jane's body says shut it down.
That is a perfect analogy, and looking at the specifics, she really did try. She looked at the nursery school. Seth says that seemed like a compromise to her.
But at what cost?
Exactly. Think about the cost. She felt guilty turning down her yoga classes, which she enjoyed and which were good for her, to work 5 afternoons a week. The moment she signed the contract, her symptoms spiked. When she refused a summer position later, they spiked again.
It's her internal guidance system screaming wrong way.
Wrong way indeed. And Seth says this fear of a job was the sorest thorn. By finally admitting, I hate this, I don't want to do this on the morning of June 12th, she finally plucked the thorn out.
So mere admission was the cure, or at least the start of it.
The start of it, bringing it from the subconscious where it manifests as physical pain to the conscious where it manifests as an opinion. Once it's an opinion, you can deal with it. You can debate an opinion. You can't debate a paralyzed leg.
That is such a huge takeaway for anyone listening to this.
Yeah.
If your body is screaming at you, maybe check what you're forcing yourself to do.
Yes.
But this goes deeper than just, Jane is an artist and artists don't like 9-to-5s. There is actually a genetic or ancestral component to this, isn't there? This part really surprised me because usually we think of career preferences as personal, not genetic.
It is surprising, and it adds a whole new layer to the psychology here. This is where we get into the family tree. Seth does a deep dive into Jane's lineage to explain why this aversion to employment is so strong. It's not just a quirk. It's in her blood.
It's almost like a cellular memory.
Exactly.
We're talking about the stigma of labor here, which is funny because today we usually stigmatize unemployment, but for her ancestors, it was the exact opposite.
Specifically, the stigma of working for others. Seth breaks it down by side. On her father's side, the grandfather, whom she didn't even know, by the way, and her father were highly independent. They insisted on working for themselves.
So the entrepreneurial spirit, or just being stubborn.
Perhaps a bit of both. A stubborn refusal to be managed. A refusal to bow to another man's schedule. And on the maternal side, her grandfather was also highly independent, which Seth identifies interestingly as an Indian trait.
An Indian trait.
Yes, referring to Native American ancestry. Seth links that lineage to a fierce, almost spiritual desire for autonomy. The idea of being caged or managed was anathema to that part of her bloodline.
Okay, so she's got independence coming from both sides, a double dose of don't tread on me.
And then you add the cultural layer. Seth discusses the Irish side of the family. He notes that historically for them, a woman who worked for others was seen as a domestic.
Oh, wow. So there's a massive class issue there.
Huge class pride. In that cultural context, working for oneself was a mark of status. It meant you had resources, you had land, or you had a trade. Working for someone else, being on a payroll, that was a mark of, to quote, Seth, degradation.
Degradation. That is a heavy word. That's not just annoying. That's shameful.
It is. Seth notes that both Rob's father and Jane's father, in their old age, eventually had to take jobs working for others. They lost their businesses or their independence. And in both cases, those men viewed those jobs as marks of degradation. They felt humiliated by them.
So Jane grew up watching the men in her life view employment as a failure.
Subconsciously, yes. She absorbed this idea that if you are working for someone else, you have lost. You have failed. You are a servant.
And yet here she was in 1967 trying to force herself to become an Avon lady or a nursery school teacher just to help Rob. She was trying to override generations of programming.
Exactly. And that's the collision. She was terrified of being financially dependent because her mother was dependent, and that was a whole other trauma involving illness and manipulation.
Right.
But the method she chose to fix it, the job, triggered this deep-seated ancestral fear of degradation.
She was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I can't be dependent like mom, but I can't be a servant like a domestic.
And the physical symptoms were the only way out. As Seth puts it, the method was highly and critically unacceptable. It violated her sense of self on a genetic level.
It really highlights how much baggage we carry that we aren't even aware of. Like you might hate your job because your great-grandfather hated his boss in 1920.
Epigenetics meets psychology. It's fascinating. We are not blank slates. We come in with these predispositions, and when we try to force ourselves into boxes that don't fit our shape, whether that shape is determined by soul or DNA, we suffer.
So Jane has this breakthrough. She admits she hates the idea of a job. She understands now that her ancestors would disapprove. But reality check, they still need money. They still have this problem. How do they pivot? Because Seth doesn't just say, quit everything and starve.
No, Seth is very practical. He's not telling them to drop out of society. He offers a solution that aligns with her nature. But before that, there's this really interesting incident with the Saratoga reunion that explains the mechanism of how she can actually fix this.
Oh, right. The high school reunion. I love this part because it seems so unrelated. Like, who cares about a high school reunion when you're channeling spirits? But Seth ties it right in.
It's perfectly related to the concept of decision-making and energy flow. So Rob offered to take Jane to her 20th high school reunion in Saratoga. Now, normally Jane might have agonized over this. Should I go? Do I look okay? Will people judge me? Am I successful enough?
Or just felt forced to go because of social obligation.
Hmm.
High school reunions are stressful enough without psychic distress. It's basically a judgment parade.
Indeed. But Jane decided not to go.
She just skipped it.
She skipped it, but the key here is how she skipped it. She didn't skip it because she was hiding. She didn't skip it because she was sick. She skipped it because she actively didn't want to go. Seth says the shall I go, shall I not go questioning discharged a huge amount of long withheld energy.
Just the process of deciding.
Yes. Seth says she came out on top because she wasn't afraid to go for the old reasons, like fear of judgment. She made a choice based on her present self, not her past fears. It was a reclaiming of power. She exercised her no.
It was like she exercised a muscle she hadn't used in a while, the no muscle.
Exactly. And Seth uses this to pivot to the career solution. He says, look, you have this energy now. You've cleared the blockage by admitting you hate the job idea. You've exercised your agency by saying no to the reunion. What do we do with this power?
Right.
He suggests classes privately given.
ESP class.
ESP classes, teaching people about the very things they're experiencing, teaching people about the nature of reality dreams, the subconscious. Seth argues this is the perfect solution. It uses her talents, writing, speaking, psychic ability. It allows her to be independent, no boss, no degradation, and it generates income.
It solves the independence problem and the financial problem simultaneously. It threads the needle completely.
But here's the catch. Seth warns them. He says Jane needs to apply the same determination to starting these classes as she applied to the stressful job hunt.
Right, because she was pounding the pavement for those nursery school jobs. She was stressing over them. She was putting in the effort, even though it was negative effort.
Seth says there's a difference between excellent expectations, thoroughly believed in, and superficially adopted over-expectations. He's telling her, don't just dream about it, don't just wish for it, treat it like work, put the energy in.
He says, and I'll read this bit, let Rupert's determination be applied here.
And if she does that, Seth promises it will solve the long-standing problem. It's about anticipating a future joyfully rather than dreading a future of servitude.
Anticipating a future joyfully. I really like that. It's the opposite of the Sunday scaries.
It is the absolute antidote to the blocking. When you look forward to something, you move towards it. Your body wants to go there, your muscles loosen, you feel light. When you dread something, your body freezes, it locks up, it prepares for impact.
Simple physics of the soul.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've solved the career crisis. We've healed the ancestral trauma. We've established that she needs to teach classes. Now we have to talk about the pizza.
We absolutely must talk about the pizza.
This segment is my favorite because it shows just how specific and strange the Seth sessions could get. It wasn't all high-minded philosophy and ancestral spirits. Sometimes it was about whether or not you should eat olives.
And the methodology was very hands-on. Rob spent the entire afternoon with the pendulum.
For those who don't know, explain the pendulum setup. Is this like a Ouija board?
Similar principle, but much simpler. It's a form of dowsing. You hold a weighted object on a string, a crystal or a ring, a washer, whatever, and you let it hang freely. You ask your subconscious yes or no questions. You establish a code. Maybe clockwise means yes and counterclockwise means no.
Okay.
So Rob was asking, should Jane eat this? Is this food good for Jane? The pendulum swings one way for yes, another for no.
So Rob makes this list based on his pendulum. He basically goes through the pantry.
And then this is the verification part. Jane checks the list with her pendulum later that evening. She doesn't look at Rob's results at all. She does it blind. And Seth says they matched almost perfectly.
That's wild. Two different subconscious minds, same dietary restrictions.
And Seth validates it in the session. He explains the logic of allergies in a very unique way. He says the foods aren't necessarily the cause of the problem in a vacuum.
Right. It's not that the food is toxic poison like arsenic.
No. He says when the personality is in a high period of stress, like Jane was with the job hunt, the body becomes unbalanced. It works against itself chemically. It starts using foods in a destructive way.
So the stress weaponizes the food.
That's a great way to put it. The food represents the emotional conflicting forces. Seth says these foods account for about 15% of her symptoms normally, just background noise. But when she is sensitized by stress, they account for 80%.
80%. That is a huge jump. So avoiding them is actually critical during a crisis.
Avoiding the foods during periods of stress is indeed a benefit, Seth says. But he reminds them you have to solve the inner problem, the job stress, to really be cured. The diet is just damage control. It's putting sandbags around the house during a flood. It helps, but you need to stop the rain.
Okay, let's get to the list, because this list, I have questions. I feel like we need to read this out like a bulletin board notice in a strict boarding school cafeteria.
Let's do it! The Forbidden Foods for Jane Roberts, June 12, 1967.
Item number 1, the saddest item, no fried foods. And he specifies no matter what cooked in, even their own juices.
And that includes the good stuff. Meats, vegetables, pancakes, French toast potatoes, and chips donuts, and any pastries.
No donuts, no French toast, no chips. Why even get out of bed? That's basically the entire comfort food pyramid gone.
It is a brutal start. Next up, no lemons or extracts. That seems random, but okay. Maybe the acidity.
Then we have soup controversy. No mushrooms or mushroom soup. But interestingly, the pendulum noted that all other soups are okay store and homemade.
Just a personal vendetta against mushrooms. Got it. Next, no olives and no beer.
And then the one that hurts me personally, no ice cream.
Ouch. That is a rough one, and it gets worse. No chocolate in any form. Cake, pie, candy, cookies, drinks.
There's an exception here, right?
Yes, this is the funny exception. Jane's pendulum disagreed slightly here. It said she could use dry malt mixes.
Try malt mixes, like Ovaltine.
Exactly. The pendulum said they were okay because they had no emotional charge for her.
So regular chocolate is emotionally charged. Maybe she associates chocolate bars with guilt or indulgence, but powdered malt is just utilitarian.
Apparently so. Malt is spiritually neutral. It's the Switzerland of beverages.
I love that. Malt is safe. Okay, moving on. No corn, no garlic. And now the paradox, the tomato situation.
This is the one that defies all biological logic.
No tomatoes, including fresh or canned. No spaghetti sauce. No canned beans and tomato sauce.
Okay, so tomatoes are out, clear cut, nightshades acidity, whatever reason.
However, the pendulum provided 2 distinct exceptions, pizza and chili.
I'm sorry, what?
Strangely, can eat tomatoes on pizza and chili, the only 2 exceptions.
So if you put tomato sauce on spaghetti, it's bad. It causes symptoms. If you put that same sauce on a pizza crust, it's health food.
According to the subconscious, yes.
This is amazing.
I can get behind this diet. Sorry, can't have a salad. I'm allergic. I need a pepperoni slice for my health. Doctor's orders.
It highlights Seth's point perfectly, though. This isn't about the chemical composition of the tomato, strictly speaking. If it were a pure immune-mediated allergy, pizza would trigger anaphylaxis just like spaghetti would. It's about the association.
Do you think maybe pizza represented fun or relaxation to Jane? Like pizza is what you eat on a Friday night when you're happy, whereas spaghetti was a chore meal or a budget meal.
It's very possible. Or perhaps the emotional charge Seth mentioned regarding chocolate applies here, too. Pizza is a party. Spaghetti is Tuesday night dinner. The body reacts to the vibe of the food as much as the ingredients.
That is fascinating, the vibe diet. We should trademark that. Eat only what has good vibes.
We really should. But it makes you think about how we eat today. How many people force themselves to eat kale smoothies while being miserable? Maybe the misery cancels out the vitamins.
And maybe the joy of the pizza makes it digestible.
Seth would probably agree with that. The emotional context matters more than the calorie count.
So Seth concludes that she should avoid these foods for now. But he also gives her permission to move her furniture.
Yes, a little throwaway line at the end. Ruburt may do what he wishes with his furniture. It seems trivial, but it connects back to the theme of agency.
Moving furniture is an act of rebellion. I love it.
It's about controlling your environment. Changing your space because you want to, not because you have to. It's a small act of independence to counter the feeling of helplessness. When you can't control your career, control your couch.
So what does this all mean for us? We've got a woman whose body shut down because she hated the idea of a job. We've got ancestors who hated being domestics. We've got a pendulum approving pizza but banning tomatoes. How do we synthesize this?
It all comes back to the central theme of authenticity. Jane got sick because she was trying to be someone she wasn't. She was trying to fit into a mold, the responsible employee, that her soul and her genetics actively rejected.
And the symptoms were just the messenger.
The symptoms were the blinking check engine light. You can tape over the light by forcing yourself to work or taking painkillers, or you can open the hood and see what's wrong. Jane finally opened the hood.
And found out she needed to teach ESP classes and eat more pizza.
In a nutshell, yes. She found out she needed to honor her unique psychological landscape.
It's a pretty empowering message. It suggests that our failures, our inability to stick it out in a situation that we hate, might actually be our successes in disguise. Maybe you getting fired or quitting or being unable to get out of bed for that job was actually your body saving you.
Seth says exactly that regarding the reunion. She came out on top because she listened to herself. She stopped fighting her own nature.
I think that's the vibe we need to take into our week, listening to the symptom.
Absolutely. Stop viewing the symptom as the enemy and view it as data. Valuable personal data.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone listening with a provocative thought to chew on. Maybe over a slice of chili pizza, if you dare. We all have things we should do. Things that make sense on paper. But I want to ask you, is there something in your life right now that you are forcing yourself to do, but your body is actively fighting against? Do you get a headache every time you talk to a certain person? Do your shoulders lock up when you walk into a certain building? Do you feel nauseous every Sunday night?
That is the question. What if that symptom isn't an annoyance? What if it's an instruction?
What would happen if just for a moment you listen to it? It's scary.
Well,
It might mean changing your career or your relationships. But as Jane found out, it might just be the path to your real work.
And your real health.
Exactly. This has been a deep dive into session 345 of the Seth Material. If you want to explore this further, and trust me, there are hundreds of sessions just as wild and specific and life-changing as this one, you need to go to the source.
We highly encourage you to study the Seth Material books directly. Seth speaks with a clarity that we can only hope to summarize. You can find them and support the work at the New Awareness Network.
Visit their website and bookstore at sethcenter.com/early sessions. That's sethcenter.com/early sessions. Big thanks to the publisher New Awareness Network for keeping this material available for all of us.
It is a treasure trove.
It really is. Thank you for chilling with us today. No pressure, no stress, just good vibes. And remember, if the tomatoes make you sad, order the pizza.
Have a great week.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.